answer as many questions and listen to your perspectives. Now that you've had some time to kind of like process these things, I think over time, more questions arise and more emotions get involved, and so I just want to be available to you guys. I know that in the original email, and I'll just reiterate, is that I can't speak directly to the personnel issues associated with Chris or Brandon or Gail or George specifically. So I'll just want to put that out there. I'll do my best to answer those questions, but I just kind of want to open it up and do my best to answer. And I don't know, your questions, your feedback provide me insight moving forward. So I'm open to this, and I'm not sure how you guys would like to start, but.
So we gathered some questions that the staff wanted to have addressed. I think just to address the termination of all four. I mean, we don't know personnel-wise whether or not they felt blindsided. We did. And so we just want some understanding in terms of reasoning behind making that decision. It's kind of uncommon to lose an entire administrative team if you're not a turnaround school, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
So just help us understand just some of the reasoning for terminating all of them.
Okay. So I know it's a I guess technicality, or its language is that none of the administrators have been terminated. It's just that all administrators, including myself, are at-will employees, and at any time we can be asked to discontinue our employment and or re-interview for our positions. So in this particular case, none of the administrators have been terminated. They've all been asked to re-interview for their positions, and the rationale behind that, the most recent rationale behind that is the reorganization of the administrative structure. Rather than, and it's, I guess in my simplest terms, is rather than having an administrative leadership team focused on program leadership, the administrative team moving forward will be focused on school leadership. And it'll be focused upon, I guess their priorities will be focused upon running a school and leading a school in areas that are overseen not just by one program, but by the school as a whole. The decision for that, that decision didn't come until probably about 2 weeks ago, like exactly saying, you know what, I'm going to be restructuring the administrative team. But I guess the impetus for it, like this whole change, it's really, I guess the best way that I can explain it is, it's really just a body of evidence of like the past 5 years in working with McLain and Longview. I said this, somebody had sent me an email, several people have sent me emails, and I finally was kind of able to, I think, put it into words, is the idea that, if I had the ability to download, all of my thoughts and all of my conversations and all of the experiences that I've had over the course of 5 years, good, bad, indifferent, conflict-oriented, success stories, that would help people to truly understand how I've arrived at this decision. That's just absolutely not possible. But it isn't something that came simply in some of the emails that I've received is like, how do you do this just based upon a survey and staff interviews? It's certainly not based on just a survey and staff interviews. My job, and I think it gets confused, my job is to work with principals. I have 13 schools and I work directly with principals, and my job is to coach and interact and help principals with school leadership. And so the meetings and the conversations that I have with my principals are one-on-one, and they, it's asking questions. What is your thinking around this? What is the direction that you're going to go? What obstacles do you expect to to come into contact with. What is the data that you're making this change based upon? And so while I understand, I absolutely understand totally that, I mean, and there's part of it that I think is probably, if there's not a good thing about it, but the fact that this was a surprise to the staff, I don't think that I don't think that I should be putting out any energy or putting out any words or giving any inclination that, a principal or an administrative staff may be struggling with certain things. And so yeah, I understand that it is and was a surprise for the staff. And I think that it was a surprise for some of the assistant principals as well. So that's my best explanation.
Were they offered the opportunity to be a part of the restructure?
To be a part of the restructure. Are they able to be a part of, like, coming up with the
building-wide
the building
structure then instead of
design?
program?
Indirectly, yes. Yeah. Not in the last 2 weeks. When it got to the point where it was, this is what we're going to do. No, but there have been conversations, ongoing over the past. I mean, and it goes back to when I worked with Deb, as well as when I worked with Steve and working with Chris. So I would say that the restructuring, like, we need to restructure this. That was specific ultimately from the themes that came out from the staff survey and from the staff interviews, but there were no surprises to me when those came out in terms of themes, because as like many of you guys have recognized, that those have been ongoing issues. So the things that need to be addressed, I think most people agree that those things need to be addressed, but the disagreement falls in how those are being addressed.
So that you don't feel that could have been the restructuring with the current assistant principals? You don't feel that they could be given direction and restructure that without being told they have to re-interview for their position? They couldn't maintain their roles here and incorporate the new structure that you're envisioning?
Not giving the timing, no. No. There's in my heart, I believe that, that there's a time that, you get to where it's like you have to take a step or you have to do something, and given the timing and the duration of things, I felt that I'm very confident that the team would not have been able to do that.
So you think that a whole new team can figure out the timing of that? Because the time's going to be the same, whether it's old personnel or new personnel.
It's not in a vacuum. It's not solely just about figuring out the restructuring. I mean, it's about leading the school, continuing on, and I'm not saying that it's going to be a whole new team. What I've said is that all of the administrators have an opportunity to apply for their jobs.
Except for Chris.
Except for Chris, right. And they have an opportunity to apply for their jobs and compete with other administrators and professionals and go through the same process. I met with, I can say this, and some of you guys may already know, is I met with George and Gail. They asked to meet with me. And they asked, like, why? If I've been doing these jobs. Understandably, people have been doing these jobs to one extent or the other. I think to the degree is what's changing. When you talk about one person being engaged in scheduling and leading a scheduling committee for an entire school and a number of different programs, that's different than one administrator overseeing a group of teachers that are doing that. Discipline-wise, there are huge discrepancies and huge disparities between the discipline of a students among administrators, and the need for one person to be the lead on that and to follow the vision of that was important enough to say that, no, we need a dean. The same is true in terms of like instruction and curriculum, assessments, I mean, all of those different things. It's streamlining it and focusing on school leadership as opposed to just the program leadership. Is this going to be a huge challenge? Absolutely. This is, I would never have ever wanted to do this. I mean, contrary to what I think a lot of people believe, I didn't want to do this. But I do get to a point where it is my job to lead school innovation and effectiveness, and to lead principals, and to guide schools and do these things. And in rare circumstances like this one, it has gotten to a point to where, like, in order to truly move forward, we need a fresh start. And as opposed to saying to the teaching staff, again, I'll reiterate, all things that are happening now and our plan for next year will continue to move forward. The work, however, is going to be looking at the future and the mission and the vision and a different structure of the administrative team in order to support and lead the school.
So what I think I hear you say, and so I just want to clarify, is that in them being able to reapply for their jobs, the idea is that the jobs are going to be very different from the way they do things now and the way that it's structured. So they're reapplying under the auspices of understanding that it's a different job. So they're competing. So as you're interviewing people, part of the interview is to make sure that they understand the different structure and how it's going to work. And so part of having them be part of the pool of reapplying is making sure that you know that they understand the newness of the job, the difference of the job.
That's a piece of it, yeah. That they understand, and I don't know if there's other words in there that I'm not connecting with, but it's going to be a different job. And while we don't make those decisions in terms of teachers, except when a school is in turnaround status or a school is being closed or reorganized. We do that with administrative teams. Yes, Anna?
But if you believed that they could do these new jobs well, you could have offered them a position as one of those new jobs without putting it up for application, right? If you believe that any of them could strongly fill one of those positions, you have the opportunity to give them that job, right? Without saying, you have to compete for this.
Without all the baggage that comes along saying that, I'll say yes. I had a number of different options that I could consider and saying, this is the new structure and you're going to be here and you're going to be here and you're going to be here. But I also believe that the change in those duties and the emphasis on those duties, and for the school as a whole, the ability for them to compete and others to compete for their positions. I'm confident that, well, I don't want to say that I'm confident, but there's a real possibility that there may be other people outside of the current administrative team that can fill those jobs and do those jobs more effectively than the people that are here. Just like I guarantee you there's somebody out there that could do my job more effectively than I'm doing it. I guarantee you. I don't know who that is, and I'm sure that there's people that want to find that person right now. But I believe that yeah, I've been told, I'll leave it at that. Yes.
The reason I'm here is just because I just wanted to say, I just don't want you to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know what I mean? Because these people our APs do have skills and knowledge of our programs.
Right.
And they can contribute in a way that a newbie coming in, inexperienced, or hasn't been really an administrator before, or even at an alternative school, won't know. I mean, it's going to be a learning experience.
Absolutely.
And I'm concerned about that just because where do you go and who do you go to for questions? concerning how to deal with the different programs and
Right.
how to, I mean, I get wanting to have the same disciplinary measures throughout the school. I don't have a problem with that. You know, when you said the disciplinary dean, I was like, okay, well, you know, I don't care.
Yeah.
But when it was the program APs who actually successfully, I think, has shown good leadership qualities in the past. This was a very tough year under new leadership with Chris. How do we know what's going to be like? Is it going to be any better? You know, next year. There's no guarantee.
Yeah,
So that's how come I feel more comfortable if at least we have some anchor. You know, and I consider our anchors Gail and I don't know Brent, you know, like George and Gail for sure. I just don't see them being against changes, period.
Right.
They've always been pretty flexible in my mind.
Support a change and support us at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly what we really, this place needs right now.
Yeah, and I feel kind of like abandoned, you know? Like, I need a mommy. No. Not a mommy, but, you know.
I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Aaron's been trying to ask a question for.
Go ahead.
So while I heard you say no administrator at this point has been terminated, with the exception of Chris, I was in a building before where the principal was removed, but it wasn't till after a whole school review happened where a team of people, not the community superintendent or the effectiveness or whatever, it was a whole different kind of unbiased group of people come in, interviewed every single employee, spent days in the building, visited classrooms, et cetera, before that decision was made. So for this decision to be made so abruptly at the end of the year with, you know, APs being blindsided and, you know, potentially Chris to some degree as well, the staff obviously for sure. And yes, I know that you were here with one of your coworkers doing some interviews one day. I did not sign up during that day. I just come back from being gone, was trying to catch up my work and maybe didn't understand what that process was. But it just seems like, is there no processes in place, or really can this be done by, you know, you and your coworkers?
Yeah, I think I'm open to different processes, like the process that you're describing. The timing puts certain constraints on that. I also believe, I believe in, you know, school, you know, digging deeper into a school and its culture and what kinds of things are going on. So the process that you're describing, I don't think that it's out of the question. I have leaned heavily, and that's again, that what people don't know are, even the comments again about being blindsided is I can't speak to those with you guys. I can't speak to that. What I can say is I've leaned heavily on a number of folks that have been in similar situations, have experienced similar challenges, and I welcome the opportunity to make this the best that it can be. So there's not a process that is in place, but the first step in my mind is selecting a principal for the school, and then my job is not to run schools. Okay? My job is not to run a school or to make decisions like this, except in extreme circumstances. My job is to partner with principals to lead schools and to guide them and to help them to see different blind spots. And I know the language that I use, it can be picked apart, and that's where I'm hesitant to do that. But we need to select a principal and then move forward with that and what that's going to look like. I think that principal is going to need to have ownership in what's happening in terms of like developing relationships with the staff and understanding the culture and the programs. And that's going to be really, really hard. But leaving things as is where it was not an option.
When will we know who the new principal will be?
I hope, again, I had hoped by Friday, but no later than next week, I'll say. It may be tomorrow, just kind of depends.
Will you send out an all staff email?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Can you just help me understand the timing piece? You mentioned timing a few times, and it's really hard for me to not believe that you chose this timing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh geez, can you, like, please help me understand why you think you were stuck with this timing? Because the problems that I believe we've been talking about has been over a course of 2 years. And so how is it that you feel like you were stuck with this timing, and so you're having to do all these things without process that you wish you didn't have to do?
Yeah, there's never a good time, and I know you guys have heard that, there's never a good time to do this. Beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And so with that said, I feel as if like with, again, folks need to have an opportunity to grow, folks need to have an opportunity to address change, to process through things, to develop consensus, to do a lot of different things. And I would say that, again, being a body of evidence and all of these things that, that I've observed and experienced, and I'm not saying, when I say like going back 5 years, I'm not saying that it's, that everything is bad. There's a lot of good things in there as well. But that whole mass together, for me, felt as if like in the second semester, I would say in the second semester, it got to a critical mass. It got to a point to where things were snowballing. Things were getting larger. Yes, yeah. That things that were put in place in order to resolve certain things were not being effective, and that to simply head into next year and to hope for things to improve wasn't an option. It wasn't a viable option to me. And when I knew that that I was making this decision the week before I presented it to you, but I consciously chose not to notify folks that week because it was the week of graduation. And I didn't want it to take away from the celebrations of the students and of the school. And so the choice was to either do it during graduation week or to do it that last week. So, yes?
Speaking of graduation, during your announcement in the library, you said you've gone to many graduations and listened to everything that was said.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, if you would have listened to the McLain graduations and heard everything that was said in our individual graduations, you would have heard how much they loved the administrators. And Gail, every student that loves her, and she knows every single student, whether they were in ACE, Achieve, CD, or whatever. You can't find a more caring administrator. George cares also. He just isn't as huggy as she is, but he does, he has the biggest heart. I'm just saying, those are two administrators that would get the shirt off their back for those kids. They want the best.
Thank you. And
Yes.
while
Like, how are the students going to react to this, which is our number one priority?
That's the next question, but Glenn had a question too, he's been trying to
Well,
get out for a while.
If I could, before Glenn goes, if I could just clarify that thank you for pointing those things out. I agree with you. In terms of, I listen at every graduation. I only went to 8 this year, but I listen very, very carefully. It's an important aspect of a school, and it tells you a lot about a school. it's not the, again, it's not the sole thing, but it's a piece of the puzzle. When I spoke about listening at graduation, what I was alluding to, and this was a conversation that I had with a friend, was that after all of this happened, or after this decision was made, was that I had heard over and over and over again in graduations about, follow your passion, do what you believe in, don't be swayed by, by everyone else. You're here for a reason. All of those different messages, and go with your heart, go with your soul, and it's not in my heart or my soul to like ruin people's lives or to jack up kids or schools. It's in my heart, whether you believe it or not, to help create the best opportunities for kids, and that is the piece of graduation that spoke to me during that. It wasn't critical of any particular school or program.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of want to piggyback on that. The idea of really why I'm here, I'm sure why every one of us are here, and really why I've taken on this in 22 years of teaching. This is something that, it's upset me greatly. And it has to do with, you have someone like Gail Martinez who has given everything she has for 20 years. I've known Gail for a very long time. George, given everything he has. Brandon, I've shared with you about his improvement from last year to this year, and I know, because I've talked with my teammates, that everyone has shared about the improvement that Brandon has made this year. And talking to them, because I talked to all three after this, and finding out that they were, and I know we keep using this term, but I think it actually is appropriate, the idea of being blindsided. The idea that I've given 19 years to an organization, that I've given everything I've got, and I'm fired, I'm done. And it comes across as so egregiously wrong that, that's why you have this outpouring. And I know you've said you can't talk about the timing piece of the blind side, but that process, man, is why I'm here, really. And to save their jobs, and to save their dedicated work, because if you're a human being and you're a teacher and you're a staff member and you're in our school, I don't know how we go forward next year if they are not here. I mean this, I really don't. I've been in Jeffco for 22 years. For the first time, I said I'm not, I sent Dr. Glass the email and said, I'm not happy. I'm not even proud. I got 2 kids who are in Jeffco schools. And the first time I can say, you know what? I'm not proud that I'm a Jeffco teacher or parent at this moment because of the firing and the termination of these 3 administrators who I really do in my deep of heart feel deserve better.
Well, I think we have to agree. A very smart, successful coach told me once that desire and experience far trump skills. And you keep talking about the job and the skills they need for the job and the skills they need. But we're looking at the commitment, the dedication, again, that desire and that experience. Experience is invaluable.
But also, Matt, to defend you, because, I gotta tell you, but, at the end of the day, we all make mistakes, okay? I make mistakes, and we all do make mistakes. And sometimes, I'll do something, I'm like, whoa, that was pretty bad, Glenn. Let's go ahead and let's take a step back. Or I'll apologize, or so on. I think this issue is so crucial and so maybe paramount to our school that maybe I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe an opportunity of maybe a mistake possibly was made. And that maybe, who knows, maybe a set course that we think could be diverted. I hope when I leave today, maybe that could be thought about, and the idea of I don't know, the idea that maybe we have these ideas and we think that this is only the one way to go, but maybe not, and maybe things could be changed.
Thanks.
I want to agree with Glenn too. I tell people all the time I come to work because I like working with the people I work, not because, even with the students and the people I work with, because like Gail and George, and my fellow co-teachers and stuff, secretaries, we all just make it come together, and it does feel like a family, and we all care, and we all want to see these kids succeed, and I think that is huge. You don't see that. I've worked in other high schools. You don't always see that. You don't always see that personality and caring come out of the administrators.
We've talked about this a lot too, just that the relationships are part of the work, the foundation for the work, and then we get to move forward. And we at McLain, we want processes. Nobody was going to disagree with you about wanting a school that's run effectively with programs that can be looked at with sustained disciplinary actions. We want things to, we don't want to have scheduling conversations in April and May. I mean, nobody wants that. But obviously, there's lots of things that we can do to improve processes. We're a little worried about, not only about our losing our entire team, but our students really feel very attached to a lot of their administrators, and it doesn't have to be a lost year if we can think about potentially what would it hurt us to do one more year under a new principal with new structures, maintaining our IEPs for a year, to see if we could do what you wanted us to do.
I think if something like that was implemented, that would be something that you could see the staff and you could see teachers kind of rally behind. And I think that's a good idea.
And not at the detriment of our students, because it will be like, it's always hard anyways to get our kids back. It's always you've seen our evidence. It's not easy to start with our kids anyways. And then to start with an entire new team without those, some of that bonded relationship, just some of the expectation, we expect for you to be here, we expect for you to do this, that culture, that really is important to us. I get that it's been fractured for a long time. I've said this, we've been a sinking ship, I get it. But why couldn't we try for 1 year? Why couldn't we try and then give them an opportunity early next year to say it's just not working?
If through the process of a new principal hiring an entire administrative team, if all of the assistant principals are hired and selected by that principal, I'm open to that.
And the committee, right? There'll be a committee for the
There will be a
APs.
committee, absolutely. And the committee will meet the negotiated agreement. The principal will be the leader of that committee. The final say will come from the principal. It'll be just like any other hiring process. But it will be a fair and equitable hiring process in which anybody that is interviewed has the opportunity, a fair opportunity to get the job. One of the other things that, in conversations was that, was how is it that we know that that our assistant principals are going to get a fair shot at these positions? And in the presence of HR, I said, not only are these folks, getting a fair shot, but they're getting an interview. Their resumes and everything else are not going to be screened. We want these folks to apply for these jobs, and they will be granted an interview to determine whether or not they can compete for these positions. As far as going back and saying that no, we're going to keep assistant principals, I can be very, very clear and say no. If they are hired, absolutely, but this part of the process is moving forward. Ann?
So I think there's some feeling in the room or with folks that maybe weren't able to be here today too, that with the new vision that you're changing administrative structure, were they really the problem? Is it going to be able to move forward with the vision that you have with new people in place, or the potential for new people in place? Or who's going to be next? Which group of people, will be hit next time? Because A, I would say for the most part, we're all a little resistant to change. But once we hear it, you know, there are some that'll jump in with both feet and carry it out to the letter that it was intended. And there's others that still want to, you know, well, I'll do this, but I'm not willing to do this or whatever, versus just going for it. And I mean, I believe with a staff as big as we are, you're always going to have people that are a little more resistant to something than the other, and
Totally.
you know, not as easy to get along with. But there's still that, when's the shoe going to drop next kind of thing hanging over your head that makes it hard to leave for the summer and
Right.
come back and know what's going on. So
Right. Man, I don't know where to begin with that, but
I mean, I get you got to start something somewhere. But
yeah,
it's very uncomfortable.
totally. It's absolutely very, very uncomfortable. And I guess what you're describing, it's not a person, it's not a process, it's not a system, it's all of those things together. And I know, like, I can sit here and I can absolutely 100% understand your perspective. I totally get why some people think like this is, this is unfair, this was blindsided, that this is a part of Matt Walsh's rise to power, that this is Matt Walsh's vision. No, these are things. And so I understand why those, when I reflect back on my own work, I guess the number one thing that I regret is not having developed the trust in a staff to be able to have made this decision, and for people to be able to know me well enough and to be able to go, I don't get it, but you know what? There's more to this than I could understand, or that I'm able to hear about. In one email, I said it's really easy. It's easy to be like, well, this is the perspective that I have, and this is what I think. But if there's a way, I mean, if you just take a moment and think, like, what may be going on? Because I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to put it out there. But what may have been going on? What experiences? What types of things? What types of conversations? What types of things would have to happen for something like this to happen? Without assuming like evilness or bad intentions. If you enter into this for a moment, just go, if somebody had absolutely positive intentions, and they weren't the devil, they weren't Caesar, they weren't wanting to screw with people's lives, what would have to happen in order for this drastic of a change to happen? I can't answer that for you, but if you can wrap your head around that and think about it for a second, there's a piece of sense making there. So, yeah.
So what happens if everything goes the way you want it to, and the problems still exist next year? So
If everything goes the way that I want it, then that would include all of you being like, wow, that sucked, that was super hard, but man, look where we're at, this is really, really good. And it didn't have anything to do with Matt Walsh, it had to do with us coming together and doing these great things, for kids.
what if the administration isn't the problem?
If what?
The administration isn't the problem. I mean, this plan presupposes that the administration is the problem. What is the problem?
I'm not saying that the administration is the entire problem. No, not at all.
Because I don't know that you're going to get to a place where people aren't going to complain.
Right.
So that's the goal.
But there's certain, I believe that there's processes, I believe that there's systems. I believe that if those things are in place, then problems can be addressed more effectively. Conflict can be addressed more effectively. Solutions, grand solutions, visioning can be more thoughtful and can be more effective. So that's what I believe, and that's only based upon my experience.
Right.
Yeah. What if? Yeah. I do this often. Is I think like, what's the worst thing that could happen? What would this look like if it completely fails and completely, absolutely just falls apart? And and what could possibly be? What's the best case scenario? What would it look like? And so I try to work backwards from, I think about it as terms of like an autopsy, something really, really bad happened, and I work backward from that. How do I prevent those things from happening? How do we address those things? And it's not going to be just me. And I've heard this a lot too, is about like my vision. I have a vision that I share with my principals, and my vision for all AECs and for our district and for our at-risk kids. I have a vision, and that vision is built upon the values and the beliefs of the people that I work with. But I do not, contrary to whatever it is that you've heard or whatever it is that you think, I do not put my visions into practice into schools. I work with the principals and I work with the leadership teams to help them realize their vision. It's regardless of whatever you hear that, I didn't create online blended learning in JVA. I didn't create Jeffco Open. I didn't create, Longview, McLean. I didn't do any of those things. My job is to work with those folks. And I make mistakes just like you guys do. But contrary to that frame that this is about Matt Walsh's vision, it's not. I've been in that seat. I've been a high school principal. I've had to lead those things. Now all I do and what I try to do is to help process through those and realize the visions of the school leadership and the schools.
I guess my problem is, what vision do we have that George and Gail can't fit into? I mean, honestly. And what is the vision? I mean, that's another thing. I don't know what I'm going to be facing next year.
I know.
I don't even know. I didn't even know till the end of the year what classes I was going to be teaching, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's not okay.
And that's not okay. So that's why I would have loved to have been able to speak with George and Gail or whoever, an AP, to see where are we going, and what expectations do you have of me as a teacher? What expectations should I place on my students? How do I handle them with regard to this transition? It's not all about me. In fact, I delayed retiring because I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to have a whole new group of people next year. It's not fair to these kids to see, not see a familiar face.
Right.
And I'm not putting myself on a pedestal.
No.
But I feel that strongly how they need to be anchored into some familiar things to move on.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm moving into. I guess that's what it boils down to.
Right.
And I don't see why George and Gail can't move into it either, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you involved at all with the hiring process for the APs?
Yeah, I'm involved in it. Depends on the principal, depends on the school. I think this process will be led by the principal. Some principals ask me to be a part of their AP hiring process. Just like when we hire a principal, this is a requirement, is just like we hire a principal within our district, then that principal or that person who's hired goes before the superintendent and speaks to them, about what their intentions are. We ask some specific questions, and so I will be a part of that.
Because you certainly get that we are
You don't
very
trust me.
fond of our APs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're not part of the process, everything we're telling you is not going to be part of that interview process. So I hope you're a part of it, because I'd like to reiterate with everyone else, my entire career here, which is 12 years, I'm Gail and George have they ever been our team leader with the chief? Gail for
Gail has.
a little bit. Most of my career here, George and Gail have not been the leaders of the chief, but have 100% of the time always helped us. You know, they have been, you know, I've been able to rely on them, even though they were never in charge of our program, because they just had a real good knack being responsible to the building and not just a program. And I know that's one thing you're looking for with some of these changes. And so yes, if you are part of this interview process, I just wanted to get that across. That you know, they have all. I'm here to support them because there has never been once that they haven't been there to support.
Thank you. Thanks. The things that you guys are saying to me, the staff interviews, the surveys, the data, I mean, you name it. Normally, when I hire a principal at a school, it's, you know what, here's the overview of the school. You go through, and it's like, all right, this is the school, and go get to know it, and you know, see. First year, you know, you just listen and just kind of see things. Whomever is the principal here, I am going to let them know exactly what it is that I believe that they're getting themselves into, that I'm asking them to get into, and I never do that. But I believe that it's really important that we hit the ground running at the even before the school year starts, so that all of these things can be addressed. At least everything that we can do on the front end, because I want to accelerate their learning. But at the same time, I'll finish that conversation with the idea that these are my perceptions. These are the things that that I've experienced. Let's talk about your experiences as time goes on, and we'll go from there.
But Steve asking, about the hiring process, like, how involved you are. If we're going to do reverse autopsy, which I like that strategy as well. If we think about that idea of reverse autopsy, and we are having a new principal come in, and Gail is applying for that job, okay? And we find out that Gail doesn't get that AP job. You can imagine what the staff is going to feel towards our new principal.
Yeah.
So this is where, again, I go back to, Matt, I don't think you're mean or malicious or evil. Nobody in this room does. Okay? Nobody, or at least, what?
Hold on.
All right,
That's okay.
That's
all right.
I don't, okay? I don't. I've known you a long time. I don't. But I just think, again, going back to this idea that maybe a mistake was made. Maybe, like I said, I'm even too, and that maybe in this situation with Gail and George and Brandon, that maybe what I mean. And
But you hit the ground running with them and a new principal.
yeah, and
Why
I'm
can't
telling
we-
you,
yeah, why can't
the
we-
good faith that you would have if that happened would be just unbelievable in this staff. And I can tell you, if you wanted to, if I was in charge of the school, I would be like, oh my gosh, if you just said, hey, mea culpa, made a mistake, let's take on a new principal, we'll bring back our 3 APs, you can bet, I think everybody in this room, those lab meetings that, to be honest with you, can sometimes be contentious, I think they're going to be on board with you. And they're going to be on board with that principle. And you're going to develop so much. You got an opportunity here for so much incredible good faith. I would hate to have you, I'm not going to say it. I just have such a great opportunity, Matt. You really do.
I know. I hear what you're saying. And I have to weigh all of the different things. I have to weigh all of the things that I know and that I've experienced and with that. And there, I didn't, don't get me wrong, this decision was not made lightly or overnight or, this is, I've never made a more difficult decision in my career. And I've never had a more difficult 2 weeks in my career. So there are a lot of things that it's did I make a mistake? Did I not make a mistake? And I hear that, and there's nothing that would make my own ego feel really, really good. is if people like really liked me because I changed my mind or I did that. I'm not changing my mind because, just because I'm going to be stubborn. I'm not changing my mind because I truly believe that this is the best decision based upon everything that I know and based upon all of the experiences that I have. And I'll go back and say the only thing that I regret is not having developed the trust and the relationships in people to be able to go, man, this seems like such a jacked up decision, but there's got to be something there. And so I hear you. I hear you loud and clear.
Would you share with us again the 6, I think you had maybe 6 pages of the organizational concerns? Did you have some, what was that? I'm just reading off this because I wanted to make sure that these last 2 points were addressed.
And the PowerPoint.
You had said in your presentation that there were 6 pages of you had organized our concerns into what things we needed to address next year, and I guess I'll just talk about one of the pieces of that too, because you had kind of arranged them into 4 things, right? And one of the themes was honoring the past and adapting and evolving at the same time. And so that's just what I keep hearing over and over the people in this room talking about. Look, we have these two who have been with us for a long time, very strong leaders, 1/3 leader that has seen growth in the past 2 years that makes people feel hopeful about the 3rd leader as well.
Definitely.
And I feel like they have they're here and they're part of our community and they care very much about our mission. And so why can't they be part of our adapting and evolving? And that was a part that was completely left out of your presentation on May 29th. You addressed the other 3 themes, but the 4th theme of relationship, community, and honoring the past while adapting was not part of your presentation on May 29th, and that's the piece that I keep hearing people talk about today is why can't we honor them and adapt and evolve together with 2-3 strong leaders that we already have?
Because I'm not saying that we can't. I'm not saying that we can't. And I'm not saying that by the entire administrative team being here or not being here, that is the sole linchpin in honoring relationships and traditions and relationships. There's a lot of different ways in which to do that, not just amongst ourselves, but with our students. And we have to honor those things, and we have to be aware of those in the decisions moving forward. But they're not mutually exclusive. You can't say that, if you do this, then you're absolutely not honoring, or you're absolutely not, honoring our past or honoring relationships. There are a lot of things that we can do, and there's a lot of things that we could do, but to simply say that it's specifically tied to a person or a group of people, I can see where if worst case scenario with this group is if that were to happen, then it would be really hard to make sense of that.
If what were to happen?
If all of a sudden there's an entire new administrative team, like Glenn was talking about, it would be really hard to make sense of honoring traditions and relationships moving forward. And it's not mutually exclusive tied to any one person. It's
Right,
tied
but
to a number of things.
let me just say this out loud. If the one person who stays is Brandon Hall, and Gail and Georgia do not stay, that's gonna look a whole different kind of way.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So, I hear you.
I just have a quick statement. So you said the new principal has a deciding vote on the APs. So we're letting a person who doesn't know anything about McLain and its staff make that final decision. Somebody who's brand new, never met one of our students, has never interacted with students, never been in our classrooms, but that person has the power to pick our AP.
But he's going to do it as part of the team.
Yeah, it's part of
Well, he's about to say,
or she,
regardless of.
The deciding vote, and I know that's very concerning.
Yeah.
As a teacher of 20 years, 3rd state now, 4th school district, I have never seen such a successful, caring, strong administration in those 3 APs. Never seen anything like it. And I think that it's, number one, very wrong when you do your job so well and put everything into it and work so successfully with staff, with students. It's not many graduations, but you see principals being part of students, and we saw a lot of graduations. I just don't know how that is successful and should be admired rather than let go. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
Because I just don't know how you can find something like that. And somebody new making that final decision doesn't seem right to me.
I was just going to say at the end, I want to try to, I think they said 1 o'clock, so try to be respectful of the 1 o'clock. But I think in the end of the day though, Matt, like you've said, you've heard us, and we're kind of out of time here, but I think there's also got to be a level like, we're going to trust you, that you have heard us. And we've been pretty passionate on how we feel, and you get everybody here, and there could have been so many more that, are on vacation. And you said we're going to do the hiring process, and you're going to have a part of that. So, I know I'm going to walk away today, and I'm going to be like, all right, Matt said he heard us, and I feel good about that. And I think you've really heard about what we believe and strongly feel, and I think there's going to have to be a little trust from all of us as we leave this room today. So I'll just say thank you for coming in and listening to us, and the idea that you have heard us, and appreciate that. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I really wish that could be the last thing that was said, but I just have one more question. Thank you for doing that. No, just that when you do decide who the principal is going to be, could we have an opportunity to, because we're not all going to be allowed to be on the committees selecting. Right. So could we have an opportunity to meet with that principal before the APs are selected?
I think that would absolutely be like a best practice. Anybody, I would hope that anybody that I selected to be a principal for any of my schools, before they did anything, that they would make an effort in order to speak with the staff. Even if it's during the summer, even if it's during like a tsunami, it's like find a reason and find a way to speak to that staff and
before
find out
the
where
APs
they're
are
at.
hired.
Before the APs are hired. Absolutely.
Mel, you had
I was just wondering, and you can send me an email on this, but I was just wondering what stepping stones were in place before this drastic change was made. Because we've heard things have been piling up, but what did we do to try and change it to where this wasn't the outcome? If that makes sense. So my example.
Right,
Yes,
the process.
Just the process of it. Did we try and put practices in place to help grow? Like with our attendance meeting, we meet with them, we talk to them, we give them all of these things before the end result. So I'm wondering.
It's a really, really good question that I can't answer other than yes. Yes, there have been steps and processes and conversations and many things that have been put into place prior to this, or have been attempted to be put into place before this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to piggyback on what Lynn said, in trusting you that you've heard us and having faith that things are going to be all right. I hope that you'll feel the same way, because I know there's been a lot of heated discussions this semester. There were some last semester, in faculty meetings where people weren't happy. And obviously there's some people, even more people that are in this room that are not necessarily on board with the way that things are happening.
Yeah.
But we are professional and we love our students, and whatever happens, we will do our best to let that go and to do what is best for our kids and to be professional and to make whatever happens next year successful. So knowing that you've heard us and are going to do your best for us, we're going to do the same.
Never doubted it for a second. Never doubt that you guys would put the kids first. No doubt.
This is just logistics. So is there who is on the hiring committee for the
It's a placement, so there's not a committee.
so a placement from like another school?
Yeah, it's open to, it has been open to existing principals as well as folks that have applied for our principal pool. That's where all of our principals come from within Jeffco. You have to apply for the pool, and then you're selected to go out to a site. And so I've only had, I'll be honest with you, I've only had conversations with one person. so far, because I don't want it to be like, I don't want to shop McLain around. I don't want to shop McLain and Longview around. I want the absolute best person for that. Haven't come to a decision, haven't come to a final decision, but I guess for what it's worth, that's one of the things that's happening.
Is that one person interested?
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah, they're interested.
And are they at a Jeffco school right now?
I'm not at liberty to answer that question. I don't think it would be fair to that person, or, to the group. I mean, it'd be really nice if I did, but I'm
Well,
trying.
we'll know in the next couple of days.
So the waiting till Friday is you're just waiting for that person to decide?
No, it's not necessarily. It's got to be a fit, all around, and so conversations are continuing. So.
Will that person start transitioning as soon as they accept the appointment, or will none of that happen until July?
Oh no, that would start. Yeah, that would start immediately. Yeah, meeting with staff, learning about the programs, asking questions. Yeah. And then talking to them about, again, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what kind of support. A very thoughtful person sent me an email about, I've been through several restructurings, and there's, the district provides supports in those cases. And so depending on what the strengths that this person sees, I want to make sure that, we're able to put, as many district supports in place, for the students and for the staff and for this principal to be successful.
So we can see on the process for hiring APs and when the timeline.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. The position is the positions are posted right now, and they're posted through, I think, Monday. And then, so we'll go from there. I envision a ballot or a nomination form going out to the staff so that folks can nominate and we can elect representatives to the AP hiring committee, and just follow the normal process.
But you might wake up tomorrow and I think
No, sorry.
We started this because we were on a quest for collaboration, and somehow it just does not feel like we're getting to the collaboration piece that was so important to us when we began this. That was the seed that we planted, and it grew into this, and it's like, but it's been lost. And we can trust you if it is mutual trust. And trusting us means that you know us, and that you know that we have experience, and we know some of these things that maybe you might not know.
Right, absolutely.
Possible. So
I'm learning from you.
I just feel like that collaboration thing is so important, and I'm not feeling it yet.
Again, you guys, thank you. I'm around. So, yeah, check your email. I'll check my email, and do my best to give you guys as many updates as timely as possible. Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think you're
There's some things I don't want to know.
He likes coachable, we like a coachable. It's been
Coachable leader. Yeah.
It's been a good growth with Frank.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for here.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Yeah, I got this life sorted.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.